Welcome to LTR edition 34, no less. I've just been thinking it's been 3 years since we started these. During COVID, we thought, well, no one's really going to be taking off to any conferences, so we should do something online, and LTR was born. LTR stands for Love, Technology, Relationships, which is kind of what we stand for as well. We are the Internet Dating Excellence Association, and all of you are members. That's why you're here. So, welcome to the group. I just want to say thank you to our sponsors who make LTR possible, specifically Parship Meat Group, who've been a long-term sponsor, and Real Me, who've also been a long-term sponsor. Thank you very much. And we've got our new kid on the block, our new sponsor and partner on the block. We've got Dating Through Curiosity. So you meet Barry and Neil are here representing. So, right, today's a very special day because we've got somebody who's been in the industry a long time, 11 years, no less. So Colin Hodge is the president and co-founder of Down dating app, and he co-founded Down in 2013. Actually, it was a company called Bang with Friends in the past, a very cheeky app called Bang with Friends, and we'll get the scoop and the story on that momentarily. He grew it to 5 million users and then sold it to Pactor in 2016 and then bought it back in 2018. And we're going to hear all about it momentarily. Colin, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Nice to be chatting with you.
And so let me kick off. I wanted to ask you about the original version of Down and the premise of the original version of Down, namely Bang with Friends. Can you walk us through that?
Yes, so Bang with Friends was kind of a serendipitous creation. I was already working on a dating startup. This was late 2011, 2012. I joined an accelerator in the San Francisco area, and toward the end of that accelerator, I just admitted to myself that I didn't have any faith that my startup was going to work, that I could get funding, that it would get users, get attention. And even then, it felt like the dating market was crowded, but that was very early in the dating app phase, basically. So one drunken night, we were chatting, and I got to discussing what are people really curious about, and what are we curious about finding out? How do we really want to date? And a lot of us said, wow, Facebook, we have all these friends, and we're just curious who is actually interested in us, which ones want to bang us, which ones want to date us, which ones I've had a crush for a long time, and we created this wall of Facebook profiles, all your friends, and you could mark which ones you liked secretly. And if they marked you back, they said they reciprocated your interest, then we would match you. When I showed my friends, when I showed my colleagues in the startup accelerator, it just got the best reactions. It blew up, and soon enough, they were telling their friends, they were sending it to everybody. The press found out, and the interviews started rolling in, and we had created this viral sensation. Bang with Friends was, just going bonkers. It was within a month, we had about almost a million users, and it was just wild for me to see something that I had been working on for, it wasn't an overnight success, right? I had been working for almost 2 years on the dating app industry area, but then this new pivot, this new idea really did feel like an overnight thing. And what's wild about it is very quickly we realized that we didn't want to just be Bang with Friends. We wanted to be not just with friends, but friends of friends, and then later people nearby. And we also wanted to facilitate more than just banging or casual, let's say, very, very much a hookup app. We wanted to be casual dating that allowed you to meet somebody who maybe wants to take things slower, but also has a very sex positive approach to things.
And you lived through, I must say, what is every dating app owner's nightmare. The app got shut down, and you actually went to Apple, and there's a story about you nearly getting arrested. I'd love to hear that story. What happened?
Oh, I was young and foolish. So I was taking a break and playing some soccer in San Francisco, and things I thought were going well. We were riding high. We were on the App Store, had been there, only a few days, maybe a week or so, when I check my phone and I get this call, and it was a number I didn't recognize, but they left a message. It was, I guess, a rep from Apple saying, "Just want to let you know, we're going to take your app off the store and remove it from sale." And they didn't give me a reason. They just said for, violating policies. And we had no idea why. I suspected, as I think most people do in the anything adjacent to the sex industry or the dating industry in general, we know that these platforms have sometimes a censorship approach, and we could not find out what even specific policy we violated. They just wouldn't give us any info. And I called, went through all the right processes and channels, asked my investors as well if they could help. Nobody could really do anything. And so out of desperation, we were, like I said, we were riding high. We were above Tinder in terms of downloads and ranking and all that. Out of desperation to get back to that, to get back on the store, I drove down to Cupertino. I went to Apple's offices and I said, I'm here to see the policy team. I gave them the name of one or two people that I was talking to via phone, and sat there in the lounge waiting for hopefully somebody to come. Then 15 minutes or so, they came over and said, Sir, they said they can't meet you. And if you don't leave, we're going to have you arrested.
Good God.
So, yeah, I decided I didn't want to spend the night in county jail. I was better driving back to San Francisco and figuring out, how we could maneuver around this. And luckily, within about 2 to 3 months, we were able to get back on the store, but it was basically trial and error because they wouldn't tell us exactly, if you change this aspect, if you change, this button, whatever it is, how to get back. And what we figured out was they really didn't want us to use the word bang at all.
Mhm.
And even though we had abbreviated our name BWF already before that, but even a button that said bang or anything that was too overtly sexual or just straightforward like that, they didn't like. So within 3 months we were back, but it was a existential crisis for the company and very stressful time for startup founder.
I wonder if you could use the word shag. You know, the English word. It's a dance. Dance with friends.
Yeah, I
Um,
like that.
it's a discourtesy on top of a discourtesy that you've experienced there, I think. I mean, I think you did exactly what any CEO who's just down the road from Apple would have done, is like go knock on the door. Like it was a great discourtesy to not be given the specifics of why an app is removed. It would have been a simple explanation, I guess, but why couldn't they
Hmm.
explain it? That's a discourtesy. And it's even more of a discourtesy to threaten police upon, it sounded like you were very courteous showing up there, a little not happy, but still, that's a discourtesy on top of a
Hmm.
discourtesy. We deserve better in the dating industry, I must say. That's my reaction to that. So, yeah, I thought that'd be an interesting story to unpack. Thank you for sharing. So many apps have come and gone. It's an interesting time in the dating space right now, and Down is doing quite well. So, why?
Wow. As you said, the dating industry is a graveyard, right? So there it's so hard. Even some apps, which I want to give credit to, they haven't lasted, but I enjoyed using and as a single dater. So I have to say, part of it is down just we're lucky, and I want to be humble and just acknowledge that some of the things went the right way, and we had some luck at various times. But there were quite a few moments when I thought we were not going to make it as well. That was one of them. That story. We also had to change our name because we got sued for trademark by Zynga, got a lot of attention about that. And being the small startup with not a whole lot of funding compared to the Goliath of Zynga, we decided, hey, this is the direction we wanted to go anyway. Let's rebrand. Um, so
But
looking
what were they?
back,
Which
why?
name were they suing you for?
Oh, Bang with Friends, because they had the with
Ah,
friends suffix on one or
right.
two of their
Of
games
course,
at the
yes,
time,
yeah.
and they claimed that it would confuse people. Still skeptical of that, but I won't say more. Yeah, so looking back, I think, we grew now to over 15 million users in the last 6 or so years since Nadav Mills and I reacquired the company. We have grown about 10x from where the revenue was when we took ownership back, and I was lucky enough to buy it back, so that was awesome. A big part of the story I can say is just perseverance. It really is, being always getting up and fighting another day.
Mhm,
Um, the other thing is, and this is something that we've really taken to heart, is we try not to forget who we are and what we want to do with it, the impact we want to have on the world. And I know some people might think, oh, you're a casual dating app, what impact? But for us, it really is important that people can not feel shame or stigmatized about what they're looking for. And when we remove a lot of that shame, people will just be more honest and find somebody who matches the intentions or the desires or the fantasies that they want to explore, rather than trying to conform to some mainstream app or chasing a competitor that is doing a certain thing. So I would say perseverance and sticking to and reminding ourselves regularly, how can we do better to deliver to that true vision, versus I think a lot of apps are just chasing, okay, chase this metric, chase this competitor, etc.
Yeah, what is it that couples argue about anyway? It's sex and money. So it's good to get the sex questions off
Hmm.
out of the way right up front. That's what we're very good at in the dating industry, getting the tough questions out of the way right up front. That's what we do better than anything else. People encounter people, but all those tough questions come later, but we put them first. Which we've got a
Yeah.
great responsibility in doing that, of course. We've got to line up the right questions and not have people kind of become myopic.
Mhm.
But ultimately, the sex questions, we need to do a really great job with that and be
Yeah.
open and have one of the best profiles that I came across in the past was True. Many years ago, they introduced an adaptive profile, which would, so basically you say, here, I'm into this. I'm plain Jane, I'm conservative, and
Hmm.
it would go so far. But if you started saying that you like particular things, then it would take you down an avenue as far as you wanted to go so that you could fully explain your preferences. I thought that was a really
Hmm.
nice way of doing it. I've not seen anybody else. I think
Yeah.
that was quite a nice treatment, I think.
Right on. So
So during yeah.
sorry to interrupt. One thing that came to mind, and this came from the roundtables that we were doing. Somebody asked me, "Do you think you can find love on a casual dating app?" And obviously, the conversation goes into, how do you define love and all that. But I think a big part of what you just said is absolutely true. One of the biggest issues for couples is sexual compatibility, and then obviously they fight about money a lot and stuff like that. For us, you can choose if you want to hook up with somebody, or if you're looking for something maybe a little more serious, but obviously using our app, sexual compatibility is an important thing to you. And so if you select that you want to date somebody, you know that going in, that they're not going to be, I would say, as shameful or take a approach to dating that is so incompatible from yours from a sexual point of view. And you can explore. Some of the best relationships I've had started from something that was super casual, and we found good chemistry, and it blossomed into something different that was still sexually charged and awesome, but then added these other longer term elements. So I really think it's an important part of dating for a lot of people.
It's a major part. It's a major part of what we all do. So we certainly can't be squeamish about it. It's very important we tackle it head on and give people what they want. I think a great way to think of sex is it's a very key and important form of communication. So tell people who you are by the way you like things and
Mhm.
do things. So during COVID, you made an interesting product enhancement to get people to chat internationally. Post COVID, you still have this product. How's it doing? It's a Snap, I think. Are you seeing any
Exactly.
interesting
Yeah.
behaviors around it? What do you call it?
Right. Snap match. Yeah.
Snap Match.
And
Okay.
we called it that because one of the impetus for this was we wanted to be able to provide an instant match for people. Something, you know, every dating app owner knows that the hardest thing is finding that critical mass, not only in a location, but in a short time window. And we wanted to give our users, when they come in, some sort of instant or nearly instant way to interact with other people, to flirt, and just see what they do with it. And what we found was that, COVID helped this, but it's still running strong. A lot of people are using this to basically hone their flirting skills, to entertain themselves, to not feel so lonely, to learn about other cultures, because you're matching with somebody who's online basically right now around the world, from a different culture, perhaps, and usually they have a different first language. And I can tell you, I'm usually based in Taiwan, and a lot of our users there, they enjoy it because they get to practice their English. So they're flirting in English in ways that you would never get to do in a normal language learning app. Duolingo is not going to teach you how to flirt in a sexy way, right? But I think the interesting uses that continued after COVID is we're seeing that people obviously are back to traveling more.
Mhm.
So you're even seeing the possibility of, hey, I'm chatting with you, you're in a different country, or maybe in the same country in the US, but like, pretty far away. But now those sort of like long distance connections, those pen pals can evolve into somebody that maybe you have a travel buddy, maybe you can go visit somebody on your next trip. And those are really exciting. But definitely like the cultural exchange and the language exchange is the most interesting part for me.
Yeah. Do you remember World Friends Networks years
I
ago?
don't know.
No, they're out of
Mm,
Shanghai. They're out of Shanghai, but they mainly served Japan, and they were on Shanghaiist, for example, years ago,
mm,
and they were really all about dating, but they posed entirely as kind of a language buddies model. And
mhm,
I think it's one of the interesting things about Asia is that it's best when there is when dating is not explicit, when it's kind of
mhm,
implied, like a superficial layer. And the layer was language learning, and they just hung their hat on it. They basically said it's language
mhm,
learning, but it's very clear from the profiles that it was a dating app. But it was just really different. I mean, we're talking literally like 10, 15 years ago,
mhm.
but they definitely they built the entire company up around that. So, well, actually, I just want to point out that if you've got any questions, you can actually put the questions in top right here. So please do load your questions and vote on the ones that you'd like to see. We might have a few minutes at the end to ask Colin some questions. Now, let me just have a quick look and see if you've got any questions yet. No, you don't. So do please enter some questions. How are we doing? We're good on time. Right. Excellent. So I wanted to ask you about Tinder. So Tinder, of course, is also casual. And with a name like Fire, you'd expect it to be casual. I think they tried to kind of maneuver the brand around over a period, but of course they bought Hinge now. So Tinder's kind of anchored in casual, and Hinge is the longer term. Tinder is the try before you go long term. But Tinder's revenues have been a bit shaky recently. What do you think's going on? I mean, you're doing good in this space. I don't say would you advise Tinder's CEO to do, but what would you do if you were the CEO of Tinder?
Yeah, I wouldn't presume to be able to handle that. You know, there's so much inside info that you need to have
Yeah,
to answer that. What I would say is, look, they over the years they've definitely positioned themselves in their marketing, in the way they talk about their brand as not a casual dating app. And that's always been our opening in the market because we're not afraid to own that space and to say this is how we are the ones, this is the place to come explore your sexuality, to be open about that. And I think they very specifically don't even want to be seen as a hookup app, it's a casual dating app, even though, as you mentioned, most users see them that way. So I think a big thing for them and for frankly most of the industry is now that our apps are mainstream, now that dating apps are the primary, the most popular way to meet somebody, how do we combat all the inauthentic profiles and people who are trying to harm our networks? And how do we better separate those who are not really there to meet somebody? They're there for, ego hits, for gaining followers on Instagram, for all the ways that people tend to waste time for I don't want to say serious daters, but those who actually are there for meeting somebody or finding somebody who they want to at least chat with a lot online. And that's I think the biggest thing for them to tackle other than, and I know everybody's making a big deal in the press, and it's a common thing to attack dating apps, especially Tinder and Bumble right now for, gaming their algorithms to hook people but not give them quite the best matches so that they stick around and all that stuff. I personally think like that's an area they should improve, and we don't do that. We purposely try to get people the best matches we can because we want them to be successful. I want to be thought of as the world's best wingman. So the more awesome matches I can create, the better. So, but I guess my advice to them would be like focus more on that long term. How do you make more authentic users and interactions and profiles so people don't get as burnt out on using it and tweak your algorithm. Don't tune it so much to just drive this quarter's revenue. Tune it
yeah,
more for people being successful, for people coming back and being happy, because I think what they'll find is for the users that are churning because they found a monogamous relationship, there are plenty of others who either are not looking for monogamous relationships and so they'll stick around, or they'll come back if the other one doesn't work out, or they'll refer friends and they'll have that positive momentum. So think a bit more long term, I guess.
yeah. Gotcha. Exactly. I think it's the incentive trap, isn't it? I mean, there must be a lot of pressure
Hmm.
to, I mean, on most, any public company, any company that's had significant
There's the
investment,
key
you've got
word, public. Yes.
investors chomping at the bit, you know.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a lot of pressure. And I think of Facebook. I mean, Mark, from the outset, was really, I mean, showing up in a hoodie and just really being pretty disrespectful towards investors, really. He was quite blatant.
Hmm.
I thought that was quite refreshing, really. It's like ultimately, in a strange way, it's encouraging. It's like, I'm gonna work on the long term and let the stock be what it's
Hmm.
gonna be at, but long term is where our focus is. I was like, we could do with a dose of that, actually. I think any
Hmm.
company that's got investors, incentives drive behavior at the end of the day. So now there's an interesting story. When you first started App, I mean, Bang with Friends, you there was no, you weren't public about the founders. I remember this going back. I remember this actually. I was like, I remember Bang with Friends. I was like, who's running it then? And then there was a reveal. Can you walk us through what happened with the reveal? How was it? And it was accidental. There was a reporter that
It was.
revealed you by accident. I tried to dig through to find it, but I couldn't find the story. So, can you tell us?
Yeah. So, yeah, the first few months we wanted to be anonymous. One, because I didn't know if I was going to run Bang with Friends as my primary and only startup. I thought I was still going to run the previous dating startup, and I had raised some money for that. And two, because my co-founders, they were also working on other projects, and they were very concerned about the stigma, I guess, of being labeled a co-founder of that. After we started giving interviews anonymously, we realized, oh my God, we're on to something. They're so excited knowing, like, it's mysterious who created this. And then we got invited to, there was New York Tech Week, and we got invited to some, I think they called it some debutante ball or something. And the organizer of that, who we were in touch with, accidentally or maybe on purpose included our names as the owners of the app in the invite that got sent out to
Ah,
attendees.
yes.
And that was the oversight. So then once that came out, all the journalists that we were talking to definitely flooded in. And while I was in New York, I gave an interview, my first interview as the outed founder of Bang with Friends. And it was honestly, it was pretty exciting for me because it basically forced me to not only embrace this identity, embrace being a founder of it, but I could, I could kind of dispel some of the myths that people had about a
Mhm,
brand like Bang with Friends. So many thought like, oh, it must be frat boys and they must have they must be misogynistic and all this stuff. And I was actually partnering, and one of our advisors was one of the very feminist and very sexually positive speakers, and one of my heroes, Cindy Gallup. And so we have this like very nuanced approach to casual dating that I think a lot of people didn't assume from the first version, because that version was born out of, like I said, a drunken night of coding. So it was very fun to finally embrace this, but at the same time, kind of not the way we planned it. We were trying to get up, for instance, on like late night talk shows and stuff like that. That's how crazy and big we were aiming. But unfortunately, sometimes things don't work out that way, and it just got leaked accidentally.
mhm. And you were working on, so the other app was called Heard About You, I think, that you
Hmm.
were working on. How was that different? What
Yeah.
was that all about? What was the
Yeah,
focus?
so Heard About You, that was the one I was grinding on. I was struggling for a year and a half, 2 years before Bang with Friends. And the whole idea was like, this was pre-Tinder. I want to set the stage for everybody. And the idea was, we were so plugged in at the time to Facebook as a network that one of the observations I had was most of my good partners, many of my friends' good partners came from somebody else they knew. It was a friend of a friend sort of thing, or it was a work colleague, but there was always that in between connection that made it feel safer, that made it, more likely that you had things in common. And Heard About You was this idea of basically providing that friend to friend network. And even the middle person, that middle friend, could play matchmaker, could have incentives to come onto the app and refer people and connect two friends together. Turns out I couldn't get it off the ground. And that's the one that I lost faith in. And I decided to pivot to Bang with Friends. But it was very good. That was my putting in my time, I guess, learning about, I ran an in-person event. I tried to develop the brand and I developed the whole product. But really, I realized in the dating industry, especially with such a hard two-sided market, you need some spark, you need something to
Mhm.
get it off the ground. And it didn't have that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, comparing the 2 names, I mean, it's almost a case study, isn't it? You can compare the 2 names and the
Hmm.
products and consider that one was massively viral and the other one was, a good product, but not is it something people are gonna talk about?
Mm,
Heard about you. It's
exactly.
like, would you talk about it? I heard about a new dating app. It's heard about you.
Hmm.
I'm standing at a busy bar and I say, "I heard about a new app and it's called Bang with Friends," or even Down. I mean, Down's a great
Hmm.
what's the ideal brand is 4 letters and 2 syllables. You got it down to 1 syllable. So
I'm all about the four-letter words. What can I say?
yeah, right. So what's the vision for Down? What's next for Down in 2025?
Yeah. Honestly, our top KPIs, the things we're focused on and the things that align with our vision are being the place for people to come for an adventure, to explore who they are, to explore their sexuality and their desires, and to continue being that very sex positive space. I think one of the key lessons that we've really cemented for ourselves is how do we emphasize the brand more? How do we build more features that help us stand out and have that fun, let's say, adventurous attitude that maybe we got away from for a few years that other apps we don't think are really fulfilling. And when we do that, we can have this bigger impact on the world where people really are discovering more about themselves. And when you discover more about yourselves, when you look inward, you can be a better partner to those around you. You can treat people better. You can just find your better match and be more fulfilled. So that's what we want to do. Outside of just Down as an app, we've also launched some interesting side projects, one of which is a AI photo generator because we noticed that a lot of our male users, they don't have many photos. So we're using a few of their selfies and creating much, different variations of that same person. It looks like them that they can use in their dating profiles. And so we're experimenting with new projects like that and we'll see where
Mhm.
they go. The fun thing for us is we're really, because Nadav and I own the company and we don't have outside investors and we're not public, we can chase our vision. We're not chasing quarterly numbers. We're not doing all that. We're trying to help users be more successful, help users and help our myself and other users just find more joy in the world and through the app.
That's a grand vision. Absolutely. Great. Good luck with
Thank
it.
you.
We got some questions for you. So I think we've got time for well, we've got time for 2 questions. So do
Hmm.
vote them up. I'm gonna pick the top ones right here. So let me see. I think that's Brad. Yeah, Brad from Meet Kingsters. Colin, I'm running a similar product focused on sex positive relationships. Do you have thoughts on competing in a segment of the market that is full of bad actors, e.g., platforms that are full of animator profiles? So, yeah, what's your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
So I think, first of all, we welcome competition. I think any app that is truly trying to help the space and help real people to solve these problems, kudos, and I'm glad you're working on it. In terms of bad actors, both company side and, of course, there are all the individual bad actors like scammers and such. That's what keeps us up at night. That's what
Mhm.
makes us try to just do better every day. And we have a full safety team 24/7 monitoring and using AI as well, but a lot of manual reviews trying to keep our users safe and identify those patterns and reduce damage from those bad actors. From a company standpoint, I can say our red line is we never ever create fake interactions, fake profiles, anything like that. And I would advise any company to follow that as well. That's something that I think is very important for the authenticity of our app and of dating in general. So I think, look, there are many ways you can encourage your users to interact more, and you should absolutely be building features and trying to measure that to increase their success and their ability to connect with other real users. But definitely, I would suggest as an industry, we draw a very clear line and root out and make sure where you personally as a company you're not running any inauthentic behavior like that.
Great, thank you. We've got Steve Dean here, long-term consultant to Cortland Brooks and a dating consultant, dating coach as well. He asked, given that people, pardon me, voice is breaking, given that people are notorious for not filling out their whole profiles or adding a representative sample of photos, what do you see as the best practices for convincing people to better invest in profile quality?
A great question, and it's something that actually went against my initial instinct. So I have to admit I was wrong here. I'll share this tip, and I hope it helps some other apps. We found out that instead of my initial instinct, which was let's get people into the app, I don't want them to have to create a long profile and fill out a questionnaire and all that stuff. We found that there's a lot of good reason, a lot of good logic behind making them on the onboarding process create a more full profile. And so what I would say is, their motivation and their patience is at the highest when they first install your app, when they first come in. And so during that time, use that opportunity to guide them in a smart way to creating the most representative, the most full profile that you can, including you should think about, what are the aspects of the profile that are most important to your app? And how do you make sure that they do them first? How do you make sure they get them done? Because as much as it surprised me, the more we added to our onboarding process, the more that we, had people add to their profiles. For instance, we added a highlight feature that allows you to really show this is the one aspect I want to stand out amongst the crowd. I want you to notice this about me, and it's a fun little sticker that goes on your profile, and a lot of people are excited by it. We added, what are you down for, and it describes your interests, your kinks, and stuff like that. Those things really even helped our retention, helped our profile completion rate. And so users, the more they invest, the more likely they are to stick around and use that profile that they invested in. So that would be the advice that I would have.
Thank you, Colin. I've got another question for you, Ashley. I think we do a third question. Christoph Reisner from Idea Wires. He asked, says, congratulations on the success. Very impressive. What is your strategy for international rollout?
Yeah, so honestly, right now we're largest in the US, and in the past year or so, we've tried to grow in the UK as well. We've had some nice success there. We're looking into how we can more localize our marketing and grow, I would say, more deliberately. But right now, pretty much 99 or 100% of all our traffic is organic. And so our strategy is somewhat of a secret sauce, but definitely the sort of thing where we do not throw big ad money behind things. We do not generally like try to roll out in many countries at once because we're not chasing anything for investors. So we are very deliberate on the market that we're trying to roll out in. And when we do that, we're tracking all of the metrics you'd imagine, right? Are people seeing enough fresh profiles? Are they liking them at a decent rate? Are they getting those matches? And are those matches leading to a meaningful conversation? So it's all those things about basically can we raise the quality of the success of users in that region? And when we do that, what else can we do from a marketing standpoint to really stoke the fire and get more users in there? Sometimes that might be, a lot of times it has to do with like, are we optimizing ASO and all that? But also we look into, what are the other presences, whether it's social media, influencers, et cetera, that we can add to that and really make it a bigger thing. Yeah,
Great. Colin, thank you very much for your time today. Wonderful to have you here. We should do this again. So thank you.
absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mark. And I look forward to the next session.